Welcome to the 7 o'clock talk. We're the Millers, and we're outside enjoying some of the last days of, oops, fingers in the way, some of the last days of summer, fall,
The mosquitoes
and the
are trying to eat
mosquitoes
us.
are out in force. Uh, we've heard anecdotal evidence of using nicotine to treat some, how do we say it so we don't get banned or mark against us, uh, treat pandemic long haul symptoms. There we go. We can just say long haul symptoms. So I have suffered from a loss of scent, and my lungs have really taken a hit. And Jessica, you can tell them what you've suffered from.
Well, I have multiple symptoms, but mainly brain fog, neurological issues, and taste.
And so we had heard this. I looked up nasal nicotine, and that stuff was outrageously expensive. So I kind of nixed that. And then we were listening to Dr. Artis on the podcast that he puts out, and he was talking about the long haul symptoms, and he was talking about how the receptor gets clogged with residual pandemic. I wonder if we're going to get struck for that. Anyway, we get hit with that, and so he said try 6 days of a 7 milligram nicotine patch. And nicotine is not a controlled substance. It's not a it's not a dangerous. I was worried about the addictive properties.
I think that's where the 6 days come in. After was reading about it.
But Harvard did a study on nicotine in 2015, and they tried to make rats or animals addicted to nicotine. They wanted to know what the threshold for addiction of nicotine was. And so they tried to do that to these animals, and basically they OD'd the animals, and the animals were becoming sick and ill, but not from being addicted to it, but just because there's so much of it. It's like anything else, there's a sweet spot for it.
Nicotine poisoning.
Yeah.
You can get that from the leaf picking it too.
And so they couldn't get it. So I was like, well, that's pretty solid research. It was a pretty good study. So we'll
Well,
give
and
it a
then
whirl.
I went and looked up one. They did a research study that had, was it 8.2 million or 2.8 million
Something like
millions of
that.
people, and they were the people that they could not get better no matter what they did for them, and 100% of them were got rid of 100% of their symptoms within the 6 days, but most of them got relief after 3.
And so basically, to help remedy the long haul symptoms, they used these 7 milligram nicotine patches for 6 days. And I'll let Jess talk about her experience so far, and then I'll talk about my experience. We're only 3 days in.
Ooh, I got bugs.
Getting rid of the bugs.
Um, so so I will just preface, I have never smoked anything ever or have ever taken anything ever. So I put the patch on, and of course, it immediately itched my skin. So it itches my skin every morning for like 20 minutes. And then I I felt dizzy and just, I guess, like what you would call high, basically. Um, but then I just felt like my brain was just working. And I have felt like my brain was just on fire. Like the brain fog, for me, the brain fog is kind of almost completely gone. Like I feel clear thinking. I feel like I just feel, it just feels alive. But otherwise, I don't have any symptoms.
How
Now,
was that when you ate tonight? What did you eat?
well, I did have chicken, but it had flavors on it. So since I've had long haul symptoms, like, so my taste, like coffee, watermelon, chicken, peanuts, they taste like rotten. So I haven't eaten any of that stuff, so I don't know.
Haven't tested that yet. So my experience with long haul symptoms is I have a loss of sense or a loss of smell, and I have had loss of some taste. And so for me, I haven't noticed the smell. I'm going to actually go to the clinic tomorrow, and we have to test people for amygdala inflammation and inflammation of the brain. We have these basically they're scratch and sniff cards and identifying what the scent is. When I put the patches on or patch on, I would say the first day it threw me for a loop. I was really like tired and nauseous. We went to church and I basically just had to sit there with my head down and just got through it. And then,
well, and you thought you had eaten something or something. He had experimented with his coffee, but it just kind of hit me in the middle of the church when I stood up and was like, "Woo, I need to sit back down." But then I realized it was probably the nicotine.
and so for me, what ended up happening is um, I can't do any. I haven't done any running this week so far, so I don't know if it's affected my lungs positively or negatively. Of course, the feeling kind of ill or woozy, it has decreased my appetite. Um, I would say the most profound thing that it has done is it has really screwed with my sleep. When I lay down and go to bed, I'm usually out and I will sleep for usually 7 hours, 7.5. And I didn't go to sleep on Sunday. I was just up and couldn't shut down. And then yesterday, I had my flight class, got home about 10:30, and I immediately went to bed and woke up at 2:41 this morning, and I was wide awake. And I'm still going, so it really doesn't seem to be affecting my energy levels so much. But I will be interested. What we eat the other day that was just really good. I did think some things are a little more flavorful, but I'll be interesting. I'll test my sense of smell at the end of the 6 days.
Well, and when I was researching it, it did say so. It's actually a mood enhancer. It will actually create calmness in a lot of people, but it also can create anxiety. It does diminish your appetite, and it can cause nausea and headaches.
I haven't gotten headaches, but I have been a little nauseous.
But they are 7 milligrams. But for somebody that's nicotine naive, those are.
It's a big hit because I've not smoked, never smoked. So.
But the first 2 days, and I put it on this morning, it still made me itch, and I still got that weird feeling in my head. But it didn't last long. It only lasted for a couple hours.
So that's the experiment right now. We have anecdotal evidence from others that has that it's helped them. So we'll report back next week.
And it's a neurotropic, right?
Yes, it is.
So it's actually a neurotropic is actually healthy. Now you do not want to take the nicotine. You don't want to use nicotine patches daily. So the 6 days and then you're done.
And I would say that most of the health guys that use nicotine actually use the nicotine spray.
Yeah, the intranasal.
And they use that when they're giving speeches or they're working on problems because that's the way it goes.
The nicotine will actually help you focus.
And I would agree with that because I've been able to sit down read and study and just concentrate on stuff for a lot longer time. So far, pretty positive other than jacking with my sleep.
Yeah.
So
we got 3 more days. We'll update you next week.
Yep. So tune in next
So
week on the. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I was going to say, we've actually heard this for about a year. Like, probably this time last year, we started hearing people talk about the nicotinic receptors, and for people that were having problems tasting, that this was a treatment. And so we've heard this several times, and we decided we were going to try it. But we have several patients of our own that are suffering because their food doesn't taste good to them, and so it's affecting them socially, and they're losing weight, and I would dare to say they're kind of getting a little depression.
Probably.
So we're going to share, and I think we've shared this before, but they're health minded like we are, and so they were afraid of the nicotine patch. But having tried it as of day 3, I wouldn't not try it again.
I don't have the jitters. No. So join us next week for an update, and not sure what we'll talk about. If anybody has something they would like us to talk about, put it in the comments. We'll pick it up and we'll talk about it next week. Have a great night.